Hi, I'm Alora Peters, and I'm here with the Lions Pride Media Group today. We're going around asking students what they think are the most important issues in the upcoming midterm election and what they plan on doing for voting next week. Have you voted yet?
I have not.
I have not, no.
No, I haven't.
And do you plan on voting in the midterm election?
Yes, I do.
I do.
Yes, I am. I actually just registered to vote this year.
And what do you think is the most important issue in this election?
Well, I think over the country you've seen a lot of, especially this following year, about the abortion cases. I think that's going to be a strong concept going into this election. And I think some Floridians are upset about the current administration, the way the government and the White House is being run right now. But I think there's going to be a strong contention for inflation prices on groceries. You see a lot of people getting upset about that recently. And I think those are going to be some key concepts looking into the midterm elections.
For me, I think there's a decent amount of important topics right now. One being, immigration is a huge issue. Things like gun control is an issue. I think there's a lot of hot button topics depending on who you like or who you don't might, can skew your views in a certain manner.
I think one of the biggest issues in the election is always going to be when it comes to immigrants and how they're handled and like what they're granted and what they aren't, because a lot of, like I said before, views get misconstrued. So in the simplest terms, sometimes the two sides are kind of like they're given too much and they're not citizens, and then the other side is, well, then what are you going to do with them? And I just really wish there could be a nice middle ground that everyone has an understanding of, and that's fair to everyone, including the immigrants, because they obviously left their countries for a reason and they left lives behind them for a major reason as well. And I have family who did the same thing, and then they made lives of themselves here. So I really want that to be figured out.
I feel like it definitely comes back to getting a new governor in New York. I feel like that has to be like my top one. I feel like just the new election, I feel like we need a new change in New York. That's about it.
Do you have advice to any future voters on how to avoid misconstruing issues, or any advice going into voting?
My biggest advice would be kind of when people say to move quietly, to when you handle your business when it comes to elections, if you see that one side is not like when you're having a conversation with someone, if they're not understanding where you're coming from, instead of letting it get heightened, emotions overrule the conversation and taking a calm conversation into an argument, just remove yourself. You don't have to be right. How you feel already is valid, and you don't have to prove to someone how you feel is valid. You can just walk away. So I recommend just walking away and moving quietly when it comes to politics, because politics can get very heated, and I wouldn't want someone to feel like it was personal.
I would definitely say no matter what, just go out and vote. I feel like there's no point of not doing it. Definitely just try to educate yourself and make your best decision when it comes to voting.
My number one thing that I always recommend to people is, well, one, do it because it's your job as an American, and if you don't, then are you really doing a service to your fellow Americans? Two is, do your own independent research. Don't follow what your friends like, what your family likes, who this, that, and the other person likes, what's popular on social media. I don't think any of that should play a role. A lot of the decisions that politicians and bureaucrats make these days can have long-lasting impacts on the future of America, and things like social media might not be here to stay. Same thing with some friendships you make along the way, however negative that may sound. But I do think that doing your own independent research and just based off how you feel and the things that matter to you is how you should make your own decision.
Be sure to have the right research. And don't just vote because somebody else is voting. Actually know what you're voting for.
I think just to kind of get educated on, the stuff that's happening in the world. I think many people go into voting kind of blind, and that's not a knock on them, so to say, but I think just to be better educated on certain issues and things that are really, that you hold close to, your personal beliefs and your values. And I think that's kind of really important going into the polls, because if you just blindly vote, you put out a stigma of not truly educating and not really understanding the certain issues. So I think to better educate yourself is to become a better citizen, personally.
how do you plan on voting? Do you plan on doing early voting or voting on election day?
I tend to like to vote on election day because, I don't know, it just seems that it's something that I've always done.
On election day.
Anything else you want to add?
Make sure you go vote, please.
Just make sure you go out and vote.